Okay, still. Oh, there we go. You are live.
There we are.
There we go.
Good
Seven
morning,
people.
good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We're gonna give everybody a couple of minutes to log in. Numbers are climbing fast. Welcome to this third and last day of the Toyota Leonardo Group event. Again, today, coming to you from Columbus, Indiana, we have Tom Lego and Trisha Guman. And coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, Richard, right in the middle of the screen. And from the other side of Denver, Colorado, Gerard Leone here, speaking at the moment. And again, the numbers are climbing, so we're going to give everybody a couple of seconds to get going. And again, the agenda for today, very similar to yesterday. Richard and I are going to take the lead at the beginning. Then we're going to throw it over to, we're going to virtually travel to Columbus, Indiana, and throw it over to Tom and Trisha, who are going to give us the tour today with focus on materials. So many of the questions from yesterday that related to materials, feel free to post them again, but in any case we have them, we can go ahead and post those to Tom. So let's see. Yeah, numbers continue to climb. So a couple more seconds and we will get going. So Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I've been out on the shop floor checking some things out, and we are building forklifts, so that's always a good thing.
How unusual. And you know where Batesville is? Tom, do you know where Batesville, Indiana is?
It's about 45 miles east of us. It's closer to Cincinnati.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've had several of our associates over the years that either commute from that area over this way or vice versa. And actually,
we've got Gerard from Batesville online right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have Anastasia. Anastasia is actually from Lebanon.
Okay, just north of Indianapolis, or Lebanon, as in Lebanon, Indiana, or Lebanon.
And a little bit east.
Lebanon.
Really east Lebanon.
Yeah, really east.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty certain we have some friends from Houston. My friend Nathan, who works for Apple, has been attending.
Really?
So, what do you say, Richard? We get going. We've given everybody 3 minutes. Let's get going with the first portion. And this first bit, I would like to go back to yesterday's tour and the questions and principles that Tom was speaking to yesterday. And I've been there in the past, and I remember once watching a video on a VCR of Dr. Deming speaking to the management team at General Motors and explaining why he wasn't interested in fixing or helping them with a plan that built the Pontiac Fiero. And it was very interesting to hear Dr. Deming about all the principles that they were not espousing and how they would have to change for him to offer his help. And we finished watching that video, and the fellow who was at that time my boss, right, got up from his seat and said, that was nice, and walked away. instead of leading the conversation and saying, I learned something from this. So where are you going to fall? And which camp are you going to fall after seeing what you saw yesterday? Is it, well, that was nice, it's good that they can do it? Or say, hey, is there something here that I can learn? Or are you going to fall on the camp, which unfortunately I met a couple, not many to be honest, but a couple of people said, they can't be that good. They're just putting on a show. They can't be that good, right? Well, they are, right? So then what? No. It's in the culture. It must be in the water, right? It must be the bread that they eat over there in Columbus, Indiana. No, as I told you, if whenever we have a chance to bring you over and teach your class live, and you get to meet Tom and Trisha and the entire team there, you're gonna see that they're remarkably human. They don't have chips implanted here in the back or anything like that. They are just like you and me. Well, probably they have a lot more discipline than you and I, and that's why you see that plant constantly improving, right? So is this possible for us mortals? Yes, it is possible. It is possible. It is possible through education and application of those concepts and principles and tools and culture. And that's one of those places where, I know how far I can take you. If you work with us, I know how far I can take you. But then the culture is completely up to you. And that commitment to continuous improvement is completely up to you. We can tell you, we can help you, but that change is all about you. So the first step is to learn and understand that this is possible. The reason why they are as good as they are is because every day they take a step in the right direction. Not to say, and I would leave this up to Tom, not to say that they, don't trip and fall every now and again, but
absolutely.
One interesting thing I saw yesterday, Tom, which I want to comment on the next section, is that how many times have I been to your plant? A few, right?
Yeah, several times.
And I've gone to many of the tours, and one of the reasons why I don't miss them is because I learned that I'm going to see something new. I'm going to go out there and see something new. Many times I have told people, one remarkable thing about this plant is how down to earth the place is. It's not one of those places that you go and they dazzle you with a lot of automation and fancy stuff that is only for the selected few. I remember when I used to walk through your plant with you and see no AGVs. Mm-hmm. And then I saw one AGV. And yesterday I saw quite a few. So it looks like you got to be making inroads in that.
Sure. Well, Gerard, the thing about it is we want to use technology where it makes sense. We want to use that automation. In some cases, a simple push cart is all you need. So why do you need to have something else? And I appreciate your point that we're really not afraid of showing you kind of warts and all what's happening. We've got problems that happen every day. At times people have said, hey, would you do a video of a plant tour? And I've said, I really don't want to do a video because it's going to always look like we are staging something for a video. I would rather go out and show you the visual indicators that we have of the problems that we're facing that day, because every day is a new set of challenges, but we're never afraid of them because we have learned that when those problems happen, we know, Mr. Miyagi taught you wax on and wax off. Well, we just say, that's something that's coming at us. What's the countermeasure? What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? How are we going to learn from that? So I appreciate that. And I think as you go out on the shop floor, hopefully the things that you see are just good standard processes that on occasion we may be able to modify or automate some of those as well. So thank you.
Excellent. So with that, Richard, what do you say we get started with the next section? And this goes back to some of the stuff you saw yesterday and we've been using some of this material for a while, and today we're going to focus more on materials management, and we're going to call these secrets, but things we learned by walking the floor with Tom and his team at Toyota Material Handling, and these are small jewels that I think that there's a lot of learning behind them, things you can learn and that you can take home and use. So on this one, we're gonna go straight to a countdown and talk about these.
And keep in mind, some of these secrets that so-called secrets that we'll be talking about were things that we noticed as experienced lean people. Excuse me. So when we showed up for the first time at Toyota Material Handling, we'd been consulting in the lean world for more than a decade, right? Or more than a decade, significantly more than a decade, like 2 decades. So it wasn't like we were seeing this for the first time.
I had hair.
And yet there were things that that were, either unusual to us or really completely new to us. So that's remarkable in itself. So we just wanted to share a little bit about that history. How did we get involved? You might be curious as to how we got involved with Toyota. And the story is that our colleagues in Europe had formed an organization called the Lean Factory. And the idea here was to partner with like-minded companies to do marketing and put on educational kinds of events. And Toyota in Europe was part of that group. So naturally, and this was very successful. So we in the U.S. Made contacts with some of the same companies actually, and formed a Lean Factory group here in the U.S. And Toyota Material Handling logically was part of that group as well. So that was about 10 years ago or so, or more. And so we partnered with them. We put on quite a few shows in different cities around the U.S. and then decided when the organization kind of petered out a little bit, I guess you could say, partly because we were a big country and it was a little bit harder to take a traveling roadshow on the road in the U.S. compared to a smaller place like Germany. I did a map comparison, and Germany is about the same size, a little bit bigger, but about the same size as Colorado, the state of Colorado. So, it was more challenging for us, but the relationship with Toyota and Leonardo Group endured. So Tom actually invited us to start doing some of our training workshops on mixed model manufacturing here. And so we've been pretty consistent over the last 8 or 9 years, more or less quarterly. Toyota's been generous enough to open their doors and let us come in and bring outsiders in and teach our class, but also Tom would be leading the tours that you're seeing as part of this event as well. And we hope to get back to that as well. But during this age of COVID, this is our our backup plan. And I think it worked very well. I was able to watch it. I had other people watching it that I queried. I polled afterwards yesterday, and everyone was very impressed with not only the content, of course, but the quality of the transmission and the clarity of the video. All of that worked very well yesterday. Okay.
So what do you say we go to the first secret?
Yeah. So, well, one comment before we talk about secrets. The things we're going to share with you are not really secrets, obviously. And there's something that's a genuine secret, a true secret, and then there's something called a self-secret. And the self-secret is something that is in plain sight, but oftentimes you just can't see it. And the analogy I really love is the idea of, imagine you're standing in front of a big picture window and you're trying to explain to someone that, hey, not only can you look through the window and see outside the trees and the yard and the squirrels running around, but you can also kind of change your focus, change your view, and you can see yourself. So the picture window can actually be a mirror. And you're trying to explain this to someone and they just don't get it. They say, I don't understand what you're talking about. I mean, I see the squirrels and the trees, but I just don't understand this other thing. Well, it's not that you're hiding the fact that you can see the picture, use the picture window as a mirror. They just can't get it until something clicks, right? And then your depth of vision or something changes and you can actually recognize it. So that's what we're talking about here. They're not actually secrets, but they're things that are maybe a little unusual that get overlooked. And we want to point those out because they triggered something in us as well.
You'll see it if you pay attention.
Yeah.
Right? When you walk around the floor, you'll see it as you pay attention. So when we talk about an optimal or an improved materials replenishment system, we're talking about success in material flow. In what are we aiming for? Zero shortages, one by one flow, high inventory turns, right? The removal of non-value add work or minimization, data accuracy, and in sustainability, and the impact on operators, the presentation of materials in an ergonomic manner, not having to hunt for parts. That is what we're going to see, what we're going to discuss, how to move in that direction, in that direction, and what are some of the features of the Toyota production system on how they deliver materials to their operators to achieve this success.
Yeah, and I think the impact on operators, the last one on this list, is something that's overlooked many times, because you can make a case that doing one thing or another would reduce the material handling component of the material delivery system without considering what impact that might have on the operators. For example, you could stage a lot of material at the line and reduce the number of trips you would have to take. But what impact does that have on the folks doing the work that now have to walk back and forth and bend over into a big gaylord to retrieve a part, et cetera, right?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that one soon. But the number of times I've heard, what you wanted to put together a kit of parts to deliver to the operator, but that's double handling, triple handling. I'd rather move the parts just once and bring them an entire pallet. Listen, folks. Don't argue that. That is it's just a bad argument. Don't have that argument. You're gonna lose every time. So this is one I love. This is one I love because you saw it yesterday during the tour. You saw some of their sequence documentation. You saw the traveler that Tom was pointing to, those 2 pages stuck to the head guard. That traveler, you saw it on the orange Kanban cards. You saw in some of the sequence documentation. They use paper.
And you can imagine, I think Toyota could afford to automate a lot of stuff if they wanted to, with touch screens and you name it, whatever technology exists, but they haven't done that. They have not done that.
And that is again proof of using creativity before capital. What we'll do here? What we'll do is a paper Kanban card, right? And now when we talk about Kanban, I have to say the folks at Toyota at a different level. They practice what I would describe as dynamic Kanban, which they take every single card, they scan it, compare it against the upcoming orders, and decide what to do with that card. We issue it, increase it, decrease it. They are at a different level, right? But in the end, what gets issued and picked with and delivered to the line is a paper Kanban card. And that's in the same for the pick tickets. You saw them yesterday. The same for the travelers that go with the fork trucks. You saw that yesterday, right? So again, and I'm having this discussion with other clients, which again is all done with the best of intentions, right? I'm moving one of these particular clients in the direction of picking. They do no kitting at all. I'm in the direction of doing more kitting, and I'm working with their business intelligence group, and I'm explaining the features that we need, and they immediately say, and we will do that electronically. Not on the first step. Not on the first step. Electronically won't do on the first step. Let's start with paper. Let's polish the process and then put a layer of automation on top. Actually, I think Tom used that yesterday, the day before yesterday, and I that's a line I use a lot. putting a layer of automation on a bad process, all it will do, it will let you do non-value added work faster. The waste will happen faster. So don't do that. Work the process, improve the process. If it is on paper, if it is a push card, as Tom just said, so be it. There is always time to spend money on automate, but rarely the first step must be, let's go and spend, $umpteen million on SAP.
I just learned something too. One of the comments yesterday was, gee, can you move those little thumbnails of Richard and Gerard that are covering up some of the slides? And I just found the setting so I can move that around as required. So I just moved everyone up to the,
I
or
just
moved us
noticed,
up to the.
I was looking at myself and all of a sudden I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. All right. And the idea of paper, you'll notice, or we noticed as well, that Toyota applies the Ronald Reagan, quote, and it wasn't Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. It was the quote,
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. So we're trusting people, or Toyota apparently is trusting people to handle paper, which can get lost, can get dropped on the floor, etc. So there's a certain level of trust that people are relating directly to the fact that if I don't turn this card in, I may not get the parts I need, to do my work. But on the other hand, they have a backup system. They're verifying that with some automation. So each Kanban card is traceable, and there's some algorithms or logic so that if that card doesn't come back within a certain cycle, there's some follow-up. So that's great. And I believe that any kind of manual process like that needs to have that kind of backup. They have the same kind of verify with the collection of the cards as well. I don't know if Tom has talked about that yesterday or can mention that today, but the process of picking up those cards has a check in it as well if the cards don't get turned back in. So I just wanted to mention
that yesterday, but I'm sure that'll come up today again when we look at that. So anyway, paper hasn't gone away. They're still using paper, and I'm pretty certain I will see in the future as I continue going in those tours. At some point in time, they may not anymore. So who knows? But right now, you will see the use of paper in a very disciplined manner. But
okay.
Well, this
Number
one
2.
Richard just alluded to, and that is, well, isn't there a lot of handling with all that moving of materials? How come I didn't see any pallets next to the line? Well, because they have been developing, improving, and polishing their material replenishment system over years and years and years. And the goal remains to present materials to the operator in a manner that requires the least amount of motion and waste for the operator to use, right? Ideally, you want the operator to just stretch their hand and use the part. So delivering an entire pallet worth of material just moves you away from that. So you will see, for example, that yes, they do a lot of cycles of replenishment, that very specific number of 37 minutes, right? They have a decoupled delivery strategy from a picking and delivery strategy. They have a picking loop and a delivery loop. You will see that the Kanban system, mostly manual with the exception of the processing in the scanning office, they used to call it, right? A substantial percentage of their parts is sequenced or kitted. But then again, when we started visiting Toyota, they were in the 75 to 80% Kanban to everything else. And it's clearly that they're doing less Kanban and more sequence, more kitting. So the handling here is completely secondary to the goal, providing the materials to the operator in the most useful and immediate manner.
So the 37 minutes that Tom mentioned yesterday that we've included here is something where most outsiders, when they hear that for the first time, go, "What? 12 times a day? That's crazy. Why are you doing that?" But I think the point, the light bulb went on with me when you realize that when you have frequent deliveries like that, that allows you to reduce the amount of material you're actually stocking at the stations without running the risk of running out. Because if the goal here is to move towards one-by-one production, that's really your only choice. I mean, the universal law of reducing inventory is you need to deliver more often in smaller quantities, period. More often in smaller quantities. And so this is a way of doing that inside the factory floor, having having absolutely more frequent deliveries. Now, of course, not everything is replenished every 37 minutes. It's whatever was consumed, but still, that's pretty often compared to most places that we work with. Right? Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Outside suppliers. Boy, this is a big one. It's easy. It's relatively easy. Let's admit it. It's relatively easy to set up an internal delivery system because that's under your control. But you're really just rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? Rearranging the deck chairs when you optimize delivery inside the factory if you don't address outside suppliers. All you're doing is pushing inventory upstream if you don't address the outside suppliers. Your inventory turns, if you're still relying on MRP to get material into the factory and you don't change that, then your inventory turns are not going to improve. Even though you may be delivering frequently in small quantities to the stations, and there are a lot of benefits of doing that, overall, from an inventory perspective, you haven't changed that much. And so what Toyota Material Handling has done remarkably well, like we've never seen, like I've never seen, is doing a great job of connecting outside suppliers. And those are of two types. One is domestic suppliers within a range, within a certain geographic area. They have trucks going out daily, picking up parts, dropping off empties, and coming back daily. So the inventory quantities are daily quantities, essentially, coming in from domestic suppliers all the way up to maybe Minnesota down to Georgia. It's a pretty wide geographic range, but that happens every day. And then they have a flow of parts coming from overseas, from Japan, from their sister plant primarily. Same kind of thing, though, where it's not coming in monthly quantities, even though it does take over a month to physically get the parts to Columbus from Japan. What they have is a daily flow of a mix of parts. And so in that way, the amount of material that they have, even from their overseas relationships, is relatively modest. More than a day, but not that much more. So this is really a remarkable thing that they have going on. So again, I just covered this. So fully implemented milk run system, but the trucks are owned by Toyota. They go out, they pick up parts and drop off empties. And I heard the relationship, or what Tom told us, was Toyota will pay for that freight as well, unless, of course, they miss a delivery, in which case now it's on the supplier to pay for that freight. And at least the last time we checked, it was 12 milk runs. That might have changed, but 12 delivery systems that are going out there on the road every day. And as I said a few minutes ago, this is really the key to high inventory turns, because if you don't address this, then no matter what you do internally, you're just pushing that inventory back to your warehouse, right? So the material is still going to be coming in at the same rate it was before in the same quantities. And so this is a critical piece. Now, this is not something that happens overnight. I'm sure Tom can share with us how long it takes. In fact, it's an ongoing effort, but how long it took to really develop a mature relationship with outside companies that you don't own, right, that you don't control, and get them to the level of quality so you don't have to inspect the parts coming in from these outside suppliers. But this is really the key. This is really the main job of a robust and mature material delivery system.
On the other hand, we don't want to discourage you and make you think that unless you fix the suppliers, there's or fix the relationship with the suppliers, there's nothing you can do. You need to have your house in order first. You cannot ask suppliers to deliver in sequenced quantities when your schedule stability is for naught. So you need to have your house in order. And yes, there will be a period during which you're going to fix the line, the material presentation to the line. You're going to move the inventory up to the supermarket, and then you're going to streamline the supermarket and move the inventory up to the warehouse. And then you're going to start working with one very special supplier, develop the secret sauce, and then go to the next supplier. This is a matter of time. Don't start with a supplier. I've seen this many times where the idea is, okay, we'll go and beat up the supplier to deliver in small quantities, and then we never have what we need. Fix your house, have your house in order, and then move upstream. The reason why you see that the folks at Toyota have a couple of hours of inventory at the line is because they have a very streamlined, well-linked and balanced value stream all the way up the chain.
Beautiful. Okay, secret 4, integration with MRP, ERP.
Yes.
So
on this one, Richard, you remember when we started in this business, right? The idea was that ERP was the mother of all evil, right? MRP, remember that we had those buttons with the ERP,
yeah,
MRP,
no MRP,
right?
Yeah.
And those of us, Richard and I, we both come from MRP implementations. My first MRP implementation, not the last one, was a Mapix on a system 36, right? An IBM 36. And you, Richard, you were a BPix guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you cannot hope to run a business without ERP. But the question is to use it and to use it well, and not have some of the inherent features of the system drive you in the wrong direction. Like, for example, using the old picking methods of the ERP system. Don't do that, right? Don't picture shop orders like that. But without ERP, how do you run the business? Right, so you will see that Toyota, like pretty much any successful large company, they have a very powerful ERP system. They just use it to their advantage, and their manual systems are tied and integrated with ERP very, very strongly. And you will see, for example, one very typical place where ERP doesn't seem to help. I mean, I have seen, you know, what some of the tier 1 ERPs promise when it comes to integration with Kanban, and I was never impressed, to be honest with you. But you will see here, for example, that Kanban that is completely manual on the floor gets to a point at which they do at Toyota, they do run it through a system that will scan the card. And they do have an internally developed software that allows them to make a decision based on upcoming demand with what to do with that Kanban card. Do I hold it? Do I reissue it? Do I increase? Do I decrease? Right? And Tom can speak to that much more intelligently later. But the point here is they integrated their manual system with the ERP. And if you're still stuck in the early 90s thinking that you can run a business without ERP, no, not really. That's not going to happen.
Okay, so we're mentioning here point 4, Loop Supply Systems. This is a company that is providing an add-on, plug-in kind of or integrated system to provide this kind of capability of looking at ERP, MRP demand and making some decisions about inventory quantities.
Yeah,
right?
again,
So
we're not endorsing them. We're just the only one we know that's into this, and then they're a nice bunch of guys. So
yeah, we don't get a commission. Right?
no,
All right.
like they say on YouTube, this video is not
Darn.
sponsored by Loop Supply Systems.
Okay, secret 5. What about automation? So the issue here is, again, Toyota can afford any kind of automation that they want, most likely, and they also, they also build AGVs. So what is the philosophy or attitude regarding automation on the floor? Because when people come to Toyota Material Handling for the first time, they might expect to see something like a gleaming white porcelain kind of factory where everything is totally automated and totally immaculate, kind of like 22nd century environment. And as you saw on the tour yesterday, it doesn't look exactly like that. Now there is some automation, obviously, but mostly the processes that you saw on the tour yesterday were people, right? People doing work. So what's the attitude regarding automation? Let me move this around again. Kind of fun, right? Moving us around. There we go. So Toyota does make and sell AGVs. And by the way, when we first started coming to Toyota Material Handling, the AGV group was part of the, and they were only imported from Japan. Maybe that's still true. They were part of Toyota Material Handling, and they were so successful, they became so successful that they split that group off, I think a year or two ago, and created their own entity to focus on automation and AGVs. So this is seems like it's a growing part of their business as well. And Gerard, you mentioned to me yesterday that you noticed more AGVs out on the floor than we'd seen before.
I did. Before, if my memory serves me well, before the one AGV I used to see was one that looked like a hand-me-down.
Yeah, it looked like a Model T. It looked like a Model T Ford or something.
And it was carrying the masts. That's the one I recall. And yesterday I saw many more. But then we'll leave it to Tom to tell us about that yesterday, but I don't imagine that he knows the history of how AGVs have been implemented, but definitely I saw more AGVs yesterday.
Yeah. And the same thing can apply to material storage. I mean, there's all kinds of equipment you can buy.
Actually, if you want a really quick lesson, it probably goes back almost 20 years ago. We had somebody that kind of got the erector set kind of thing to put together. And we started playing around with the idea, and we started playing around with how do we move things automatically. We went through the experiments. Our parent company in Japan was developing some technology, and then we got a couple of their units. And it really just started as some way for us to grow and to learn. We didn't have any aspirations of automating the whole place, but it was a process of learning something. So we've taken a number of those little steps, and as you see, we've now come to the point where we're actually manufacturing some of those that we are selling. They're part of our new automation group. We've had a lot of success, and a lot of those AGVs are running around in the Toyota car factories around the states here as well. In fact, really a lot of the testing and proving ground happens at that Camry plant down in Lexington, Kentucky for Toyota, where we have pretty good access to a pretty state-of-the-art facility to test and evaluate a lot of our equipment. But this has been an ongoing process. But what we've always tried to do is say, okay, what's the next thing that we want to learn, and how do we do that? Today, as we walk around, there's a possibility that we will see one of the newer Toyota AGV tuggers bringing some front axle parts to the line, and it'll just depend upon the timing. We'll try to walk around the route of that, so hopefully we'll see it someplace along the way. But we are continuing the mass delivery. The reason we're delivering those in upright now instead of flat is that we are going to be going through an automation process of automating the delivery from the mast line. So this is all just kind of a step at a time. And the vast majority of that we're trying to learn in-house and grow our engineering staff to help support and learn those things, because the more we learn about it, the more feedback we can also give to our automation group as we move forward as well. And then we have the expertise beyond that of Bastion Solutions and Vanderlande. Vanderlande is huge in Europe, doing automatic storage and retrieval systems, a lot of really neat things. And it's an ongoing process, but we are trying to take that inside and make sure that we learn how those are used, what is all in that, so that we continue to grow our people in that process as well to find the best applications for that technology. So that's all.
No,
so it's a conservative. It's a quite a conservative approach to introducing new technology, is what I hear you saying. That you're not eager to just introduce something new without really understanding it and working with it and training your people in its use, et cetera, before you would actually turn it on.
Right. We would like to understand some of that and be able to not only think clearly about the application, but how does it work, and maybe how can we even make it work better in our particular application if we understand that. Understand those things.
And there's no, Tom, there's no automated storage right now?
No automated storage. Funny story on that. Actually, I visited Japan, and again, it's been over 20 years ago, and Toyota, our parent company, manufactures really neat automatic storage and retrieval systems. And I saw it the first time, and my eyes got big, and I said, we really need that. We really need that. And the guy looked at me and he said, you don't really need that. There's no reason for you to have that type of system in your facility right now. You need to know how you're doing this. You need to control your parts. It's good in some applications. For instance, if you've got a big service parts warehouse or something where you have to have a lot of things and you're picking one piece at a time. But for our application right now, it's not necessary. We could impress ourselves and put something into place, or we could put something here to show people. But right now, a lot of the things that we're doing manually, we believe that we can do, just as efficiently as where we need to be in that journey at this point in time. So we'll continue to explore, but no automatic storage and retrieval in our building right now.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. So bottom line message is don't be dazzled just by the shiny stuff. Right? Sometimes, as Tom said before, a push card will do, and if a push card will do, until you're ready to automate it, don't put a layer of automation on a bad process. That's a really important one. Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So let's go to the next one. Oh,
right.
Yes.
Obvious question, right?
Obvious questions, right? How come we didn't see too many fork trucks driving around there, right? And
yeah, they're free. They're free to Toyota, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or at least they can get them at cost, I guess. But again, you will not see many fork trucks driving around the middle of the plants because they're not delivering stuff in bulk. Now, in the past, you may have seen some of that delivering the big, heavy parts, but now, no. And then again, we'll leave that up to Tom to later if anybody has any specific question about this. But you will see fork trucks on the perimeter, right? In some of the perimeter, at least the last time we were there, you would see some fork trucks on the perimeter moving some of the large containers that they receive from Japan and from overseas. But in the production areas, I don't remember the last time I saw one.
All right, so here are our bullet points. So they are used, right, as needed, or when they are needed, they are used, obviously. But most of them are outside the production area. The material coming in, for example, from Japan in shipping containers, you need some horsepower to move those kinds of things around. So you'll see them in the dock area. You'll see them on the perimeter of the manufacturing area, and you'll see them inside as well, but for selected use only. Again, the shipments from Japan is, I touched on this earlier, but it's quite an amazing logistics effort that they do, because these crates or containers are coming in every day. Not one, but multiple containers coming in every day from overseas. And I believe that total delivery cycle is something like 50 days or more long. So it's quite an amazing thing. But it's a daily requirement to unpack and put away a variety of different parts that are inside those crates. But that, again, is the secret to reducing the inventory of overseas parts.
So yeah, they do use fork trucks, but not to deliver materials to the line.
Right. Okay. So I think we've covered that. Let's go on to number 7. When is a Kanban signal sent?
Yes, this is an interesting one because this is a question that appears every time folks are taken on a tour. The folks that come to our class are taken on a tour because Tom did mention yesterday, and he did say this specifically when he picked up the Kanban card from the bin. He said when the associate takes the first part out of the bin, she will mail, he used the term mail, this card back to, right? And for processing. And we always get the question, wait a second, on first, right? The conventional wisdom is when the bin is empty. But at Toyota, they do it on first part. And that's pretty unique. And that's to give them time to process that card, because again, they are on a 37 minute time, or 32 minute cycle time, right? And that's a pretty tight ship they're running.
Yeah. Now, could you have a case where the card is turned in when you consume the first piece, and the replacement bin, because that card is a signal to replenish, so could that bin come back? And it's not going to come back the next cycle. It's going to be several cycles, delivery cycles, before you get that bin back. But could it come back and that original bin is still in use? The answer is yes, right? That is possible. So one of the challenges is storage, right? Because you could have an extra bin there. And that's the challenge. That's bullet number 4 here, storage space. So strictly speaking, you're not limited to 2 bins or 3 bins. You could have an extra one, depending on the consumption, right, of those parts.
And one thing you'll see when you talk to the Toyota folks, not just Tom, but everybody else, I don't think anybody there would refer to Kanban as the 2-bin system. And we see this in many other places, the 2-bin system. It's Kanban, and sometimes it's 2 bins or 3 bins or 4 bins, right? And this challenge that they do use standardized bins. So you calculate the quantity divided by the bin capacity, and it may end up being 3, but you have a signal per bin. That signal goes back, is processed and replenished. And the challenge that Richard just mentioned, I would assume that 10 years back, 20 years back, at Toyota Material Handling, they probably did have this issue or this challenge, or a higher magnitude of coming back with the bin and the original bin is still being used, and I don't have the room to place it. But I can guarantee that over time they continue to polish the system, and now that rarely ever happens. Right, because over time they have been improving that system, because they're masters at Kanban. They use Kanban pretty much better than anybody else I know, and we implement Kanban systems.
Yes, Tom.
I'll just pop back on here for a second.
Yeah, please.
The thing that we want folks to try to understand is the ultimate lot size is 1 piece at a time. So even though that box, there are times when somebody looks at that box and they say 50 pieces will fit in that box. And we say, no, we only need 2 pieces in that box, because 2 pieces is a half a day's usage. So if I'm going to have no more than a half a day's stock on the line, it may mean that if if I have 1 or 2 boxes, I need to make sure that I have a lot size that allows me to keep about a half a day's material, so that as I'm using those, I'm replenishing the Kanban. So part of this is driving the inventories down line side so that we don't have a bunch of dead inventory there at the line. And so we're continuously trying to reduce lot sizes, one from a physical standpoint on not having to deliver. You're delivering more frequently, but you're delivering smaller quantities and you're driving it back towards that 1-by-1 production. So that's part of the situation there. We can run into occasions where maybe a part is being delivered and now we have an overstock. It won't go into the rack. Those would go back onto the cart and they'll go to a special table, and we'll try to figure out what's going on with the cards, what's happening, why is that happening. So we're trying to learn from any situation that we would have over that. And then likewise, we're trying to avoid having to hot part a call because there's a shortage as well. So we're trying to learn from both of those situations and trying to move towards single piece flow in Kanban as well. Just because 50 pieces will fit in the box, we will reduce that lot size. Now, some of your suppliers will complain. They'll say, I can put 50 in this box. Why do I have to put 2 in here? Look at all the space to ship it and handle it, etc. And we're saying it's the right thing because it continues to force you to try to move towards that ultimate objective of 1-by-1 production. So that's kind of the philosophy that's behind that. And I'll show you a couple of examples while we're out there on the floor today. So that's all.
Okay. Hey, Tom, before you go, I think you've mentioned this before, but the philosophy of turning in the card when the first piece is pulled, what I remember you saying in the past, and you can confirm this, is that what that does is it kind of gives you a head start on the replenishment process, for one thing. So that's one reason why you do it. The other thing is it gives the operator multiple opportunities to kind of recover from not turning in a card, because if you miss it on the first piece and the card is still sitting in the bin, you can turn it in when you consume the second piece or the third piece even maybe, and you're still not going to jeopardize the replenishment system. Right. Whereas if you wait until it's empty and you miss the card, then you're kind of too late.
Sure. It gives you that start. And since the time that we gather the cards till we pick them up is that 37-minute window, you basically, if you miss a cycle, you potentially miss a second, another 37 minutes. So we want to just get people into that discipline. When I use the first piece, turn in the card. Don't wait until you get to the end. Let's just make that an understanding that new parts arrive. There should be a card in there when I pull the first piece, because that's my signal to reorder those. If I get to the end and maybe there wasn't a card in there, I go, oh, well, that one didn't have a card. Then maybe I haven't identified the fact that there's a lost card that blew out on the way there. So anything that comes to me, it provides identification of that part in that box, which is necessary. But then it gets it into the right place. But then I'm reordering that part to come back. So as you said, it's part of that cycle, but it also gives you that discipline of understanding. If this arrives, this is the ticket when I start to use it that verifies that I am reordering more of these through the process. And hopefully the timing is so that it comes back and replenishes no more than a half a day of inventory to the line on any one of those parts.
Yep.
If all those parts come home, then I should have rack space for all the cards if they come home and I'm not using that part.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Moving on.
Okay. Secret 8. How much inventory is planned for? Okay. So we've been touching on this already, I think, as we've been going through here, but let's explore this in more detail, because this is a little bit unusual as well compared to, say, conventional lean thinking. Mm-hmm. So what is the issue here? Well, Gerard and I have been teaching Kanban, right, or material management for a long time. And when people would ask us, well, how much inventory should we have? on the factory floor or at the stations, we had a rule of thumb, general rule of thumb that we would recommend. And that is a day's worth on the line, 3 days in the supermarket, 10 days in the warehouse. If you just want a general guideline.
Which is a very good starting point. Right? It's a very good starting point. But if you look at the folks at Toyota, they're in the couple of hour range at the line, right? And they don't use a supermarket. They have well evolved from there, and they have only 2 points from their storage location straight to the line. But then again, they've been at it for many years.
Yeah, so I'm sure Toyota Material Handling, as Tom just said, right? The vision is one by one delivery of materials. So in the perfect world, and I think Henry Ford actually said this. There was a Henry Ford quote I remember reading. He said, in a perfect world, I would just have outside suppliers deliver parts one at a time to my assembly line. Just hand off the parts from the outside supplier. But I can't do that, at least today. So, but that's the goal, right? That would be the perfection in terms of material delivery. So the Toyota goal of one by one production, as we've said probably many times already, extends not only to workflow but to the material delivery, and that's kind of the goal. But there's some practical limitations, right? We're not going to have a 3.7 minute delivery cycle, at least not today. So
you just heard Tom. It is always at the front of their mind that the ultimate delivery quantity is 1. Until we get there, where do we start? They may start with the 50 that Tom was talking about that fit in the bin, but they're not going to leave it there forever. There's a very good chance that they'll move it to 40 and to 35, and some way, somehow, through engineering and through good thinking, Kaizen, they will get to that one by one. But it doesn't happen overnight.
Well, and I just learned something from Thomas a minute ago, and that is, I wasn't aware, but they have apparently a Kaizen process in place so that if additional material arrives at the station and there's no room to store it, because it's an additional bin, there is a process in place to not only know where to put it, but also to trigger, an investigation. Why did this happen? What can we do to maybe reduce those quantities further? This situation doesn't happen in the future.
But don't forget Tom's innate humility. There is a chance that happens once a month. Doesn't happen very often. Of course, it is a treasure. Right? I don't think that happens very often.
Yeah.
But they do have a process for it, and that's where the value is. Learning from, hey, oopsie, let's learn from this. So yes, their inventory turns are
I'm reminded of a client that I visited doing an audit, and the same issue came up. When I looked over to a part of the factory floor and they had a caged area that was quite large. I mean, it was a big area with baskets of machine parts in there. And I said, well, what is that? Oh, that's the overflow area. Well, what is the overflow area? Well, that's when, we trigger replenishment, but we don't have a place to put the basket of parts because the line is full. So we put them over here. This was like a big area of the factory floor. So this does happen other places.
You're not going to see that in Columbus.
Okay, and again, reminder, golden key of not running out and having low inventories is the short delivery cycle.
It's the delivery cycle. And we have tested that with simulation, and the key is the short delivery cycle. Increasing quantities will get you only so far, but when you're dealing with mixed model and variability, what will clip those peaks of variability is the short delivery cycle. So try to get to the shortest delivery cycle you can afford. Trying to get to 37 minutes on day one, not a good idea, right? But don't be satisfied with 1 week of inventory at the line. We're not going to tell you that overnight you need to go to 4 hours of inventory on the line, but you must keep that always in the front of your mind. How do we get there? How do we get there? Set a target, an aggressive target, and move in that direction, relentlessly.
Okay. Secret 9, respect for people. All right. This is one of the 4 key North Star goals of the Toyota production system that we heard about on Tuesday.
Yeah, and when it comes to materials and respect for people, the way I see it is delivering those parts to the associate, to the operator, in a manner that are most useful. Don't make me spend half my work content time looking for parts, hunting for parts, trying to figure out what is what. The materials organization shows that respect for people by delivering those materials in the most useful manner, in a kit that has exactly what I need, not something I have to rifle through, in a Kanban bin that doesn't require me having to, move it from place to place to be able to use it, or having to walk 50 paces to go get the next seat or the next engine cover, or having to pick up a heavy part. And again, it's not something that happens overnight, but it's something that you must pursue relentlessly.
I think in most organizations, I think it's safe to say that the material organization or material handlers are somewhat regarded as second-class citizens, right? They're oftentimes classified as indirect, right? And when you call someone an indirect, you're kind of implying that, they're not really necessary. They're just kind of a necessary evil. And if we could get rid of them, then that would be better. And I don't think that's the attitude at all at Toyota. I don't even think that the material organization people are classified as indirect. Like everyone is direct.
Tom mentioned that the other day. Everybody's considered direct because everybody is has the goal of helping build the product. So but this is a common sin. We get excited about the line design. We design the line, we link it, we balance it, we set up the workstations, we make it look pretty, and then we look at each other and go, oh, what about parts? It's not an uncommon sin. Just be forewarned. Make sure that those 2 tracks are working completely in parallel. Because the most beautiful line will not give you product without parts.
Yeah, and if you want to see immediate pushback from a company in many organizations, suggest that we need to increase the number of material handlers as part of a lean initiative. And typically the response is not positive. Again, because material handling is regarded as an overhead function, right? It's overhead, it's waste in a sense, and the idea of increasing that seems to be in their minds synonymous with increasing waste, even if it could have a tremendously positive impact on the operators themselves.
Sometimes it's not even the increase in the numbers, which is not directly necessary. You may have a blip during which you need to supplement, but the goal in the end is not to have as many material handlers as operators, right? But Richard's making a point. They don't get the same respect. I mean, I'm talking Rodney Dangerfield now. They don't get the same respect, and the materials organization doesn't get the same respect as everybody else in the plant, and they should. So anyway, respect for people, very important, and this you're seeing here. Look at these beautiful. I hope you can read them. Right? These are just beautiful principles to live by, right? Respect, integrity, communication, and we can talk about this all day. But you can just pay lip service to this, and you can have this all over the plant and have those what are those posters, you know, those inspirational posters. But now you probably notice a big blue band at the top. Let us reveal where this came from.
Yeah, and I love, before I reveal, I love the first one. Ruthlessness, callousness, and arrogance don't belong here. I love that one. When I show you who this company was.
Yeah.
Click, Enron. This is funny.
See, you can have the most beautiful core values, but if you don't practice them, what are they worth, right? But again, one thing I love about visiting with our friends at Toyota is that they live not these values, they live the ones that Richard is about to show us. And actually, this is a picture we took of a screen. The next one, please, Richard, is a picture we took, and Tom spoke to these. And again, sorry about the poor quality of the picture, but these are the values that Tom was speaking to the other day, and they just live them, right? And that's one thing that to me is, you know, from visit to visit to visit over the past decade, I haven't seen any change there. They never say, well, you know, that thing we told you about respect for people, we kind of changed that. We don't do that anymore.
Too much respect.
Nah, too much respect. It's boring. Now we're all mean to each other. No, that's a level of commitment and discipline that, you know, it is on another level. So again, don't pay lip service. Set up, if you set up a principle, live by it.
Okay.
So, bringing it all together, materials management in materials replenishment to the line is not magic. There is a methodology. It can be learned. It can be applied. Many of the principles are common sense, and you have to start by setting an aggressive target. Let's say our goal is to have no more than 2 hours, 4 hours of inventory at the line. Tomorrow, no. Where are we now? Oh, we have 3 inventory turns. Okay, let's get to 6. Let's get to 9, right? Focus on material flow. Material flow is as important as product flow, as important. Not 75%, not 4/5 is as important as product flow. And those two tracks must flow in parallel when it comes to the design. And then learn to execute the basics well, setting up the right quantities. Identifying the right replenishment profile for each part. Some parts are perfect for Kanban, must stay on Kanban. Some parts are the perfect candidate for sequencing. And sequencing means one part for one product. So this is a little more work. Don't try to go, 50% sequencing parts starting tomorrow. No. Start with 1 or 2 or a class of parts, right? And then you start sequencing. You develop your own methodology, which in your case may be utilizing a reporting system that pulls data of your ERP and creates a picking card, and that picking card has specific data that allows you to pick the part, put it on a push card, and deliver it to the line. And then you may develop something a little more sophisticated, but don't try to start with everything. If you can pick a class of parts for sequencing, a class of parts, or maybe a specific workstation, start kitting, and maybe another specific workstation to present sets, and you start with a high percentage of Kanban, that is okay. Over time, you reduce the Kanban, you increase the kitting, you increase the sequencing, you present more sets, and you practice those methods one by one by one. be focused on containerization. Don't think that you can have every container under the sun. Try to limit the number of containers to no more than 5 or even less if you can. Learn to design delivery routes. We teach you that in class, and you will see today. To my last count, they had 11 delivery routes at Toyota Material Handling, and I'm sure Tom will comment on that later. Learn what the replenishment signals need to be. Is it the empty bin? Is it the cart? Is it on first part? Is it on last part? Are you going to be using an empty conveyor, space on the floor? What are your replenishment signals? How are you going to convey materials? Are you going to do it using tugger, using push carts, using AGVs, right? Don't jump to technology too soon. Once you get your house in order, start engaging suppliers. Now, some of you may be lucky and might be able to engage suppliers from the very beginning. I remember in one implementation, we engaged supplier very early. It was an aerospace application, and the supplier was engaged right from the beginning. That's not the standard. Get your house in order. Have a reliable engine that consumes at a predictable rate. Then you can go with that predictability to your suppliers and say, hey, could you take these wheels or seats or parts and put them in the right sequence for my production schedule 2 days, 3 days, 5 days in advance. Now you can go ask for that. But beating on the suppliers before you have your house in order is asking too much. So with that, Richard, why don't you take over and give us a quick tour of the Lean Design Studio. We've been talking about the Lean Design Studio. We got a couple of questions as to the Lean Design Studio, so please give us a quick tour before we turn it over to Tom.
Okay, so the backstory here was that during the age of COVID, one of the things that Gerard and I had been noticing or commenting on or discussing was the fact that we had 20 years of content. Maybe there were tools that we developed for a particular application, right? Particular project. Maybe it was a course that we developed, but maybe it was a webinar that we delivered, 5 years ago. But we had a lot of stuff basically residing on our computers, on our hard drives or solid state disks, that was not being used, not being shared, not being, not helping anybody, but really good stuff. And so we said, since things seem to be moving online, people are doing more online training and, they're not able to get on an airplane as much. Maybe we can take this opportunity to look at these, what I'm calling a treasure trove of information and content, and organize it and maybe bring it up to date, review it, make sure that it's all current, and then put it online, in the form of a website. And so that's what we've done. And we're calling this the Lean Design Studio. And what I want to do is just take a few minutes. We can explore this, or you can explore this later on in more detail, but I just wanted to take advantage of a captive audience here just to share with you what is included in the Lean Design Studio before we turn this over to Tom, right, for the next tour. So I'm going to share screens here.
Yeah, well, Richard is clicking to share screens. LeanDesignStudio.com, go check it out, and you will see that it's Lean Design Studio by the Leonardo Group. It's our material, and what COVID did for us is accelerated the process. We have been working on bringing our materials online for quite some time, but COVID has accelerated this. And what you will see here is that we have multiple different levels for you to engage with the Lean Design Studio. So Richard, looks like you're there, so go ahead and take it over.
Okay, looks like we're here. Good. So let me know if this is not working. But basically, this is a platform, and we're organizing the material that we had into different categories. So we have over here on the left, we have a start category. And then slightly more advanced, we have the explore category. So start would be things like introduction to flow manufacturing, introduction to lean material management, introduction to simulation modeling. So a lot of shorter courses, maybe 10 lessons. You could complete that in an hour, hour and a half. And then a lot of just single topic lessons. So if I just click on start, I'll just show you, whoops, I have to log in. Membership upgrade. All right, I'm just logging in. Dismiss. Okay, so I'm now logged in. So if you click on start, it's going to take you to a page, and I can just briefly show you what's included. There's a section for courses, so introduction to flow, materials, mixed model line design, etc. These courses are color coded, so materials would be red and line design would be dark blue. So, and these are individual topics. So history of material flow, what is push, what is pull, measuring inventory record accuracy. Some of these are short webinars that we did. And then we have some lean tools. So doing the lean math, how do you calculate the total cost of procurement, calculating benefits of a quick changeover initiative, calculating the benefits of a lean project. So we have an online calculator that asks for inputs and then gives you an estimate of the dollar potential improvement. So that's the start piece of this. Now, Explore includes actually the some of the courses that we teach at Toyota in an online version.
Where the heavy lifting begins, right?
Right. So these courses, mixed model line design and mixed model material management, are online versions of the same classes that we teach at Toyota. So these are 10 to 12 hours of online. I mean, there's a lot of content here for both of these. And then we have some crash courses on simulation modeling. I'll show you in a second. We have simulation modeling software built into this platform. And of course, if you're new to this, then you need to get trained in simulation concepts, how to build models, and then how to use this particular tool. A couple other courses, high mix, low volume line design. So some of you may be aerospace, electronics. There's some industries that are very high mix, low volume. Lots of products, not very many of each product. So there's specific challenges related to that. Roadmap for value stream mapping. This is a pretty extensive value stream mapping class. I think it's over 3 hours with quite a few lessons where we walk through the process of developing a value stream mapping project. And then the same thing here. These are individual topics. And by the way, this is a very dynamic site because we have a ton, literally lots of content that we have not yet reviewed and updated and loaded to this platform. So there's a lot that remains to be added. Now, under this next section, Learn, what we're suggesting here is that you may want to do more than just take an online course. You may want to aspire to get certified in some of these topics. By certified, we mean you got to take this a little bit more seriously by not only taking the course or courses, multiple courses, but you have to pass an exam, a pretty substantial online exam, and you have to do a project. So we have 3 certification tracks that are available to you. Mixed model, the line design track, the material management track, and then the simulation modeling track. All 3 of these are structured the same way. So you learn the content, you take a test, you do a project. And this is with our coaching, with our personal coaching on these efforts. Now here's the one that's probably most unique. Yeah, it's something you wanted to say.
One comment on that, Richard. On the training sessions, the training courses, one slight difference that we have with when we teach it live is that we do teach the same lessons. Same 22 lessons that we teach at Toyota are in online, right? But to make it more interactive, we make you do more stuff. So you will find some slides that we're calling interactions that require you to click and answer questions or assemble or correlate words, right? Or answer questions. And then at the end of each one, you're going to have a quiz. but the quizzes are not intended for pass fail, are intended just for trigger a different part of the brain to make you remember better. When it comes to a certification tracks, now we're beating you quite a bit harder. Now the exam is 120 questions, picked out of a random 240. So if you have to retake it, you're not going to get the same questions, right? And then there is the project. So that is quite a bit more work, but the goal there is that you receive a certification.
Yeah, and it's not easy to take an online class, especially a substantial one. I can speak from personal experience. I've signed up and paid for quite a few classes that I never finished, to be honest. So by setting a goal of getting certified, that really helps focus the mind and focus the effort in terms of getting this done, because you have a reward at the end of the road. Okay, simulation. Now this is something pretty unique. One of the challenges that I had personally in terms of becoming a user of simulation modeling was, number one, the learning curve. The learning curve was steep to really build the kind of models that we wanted to build. So that was challenge number one. Challenge number two is the cost of the software. It's substantial enough that you can't just buy a simulation package to play with. Seats for some of these vendors are between $10,000 and $20,000 for one license. So the cost can be a challenge as well. Minimum several thousand, I would say, to get into simulation modeling for software. So we wanted to address those two things, especially the learning curve. So with our partners in California, we developed an Excel version of a simulator. Again, this is not a toy. This is the real thing. It's a discrete event simulation modeling tool, but it's designed around a value stream design, or a process flow design, so that we're really building models that are similar to the kind of designs that we're implementing. So that really narrows the focus of the data that's required and how these models are structured, and it really reduces the learning curve a lot. So the idea here with this software is that you will build a model in Excel, in software you already know. So we'll train you in terms of how to do that. Here's a simulator quick start course where we go through the different data elements that will be required to build this model. And then we've created, and here's where the software comes in, we've created a simulation engine. So what happens here is you will build a model in Excel, you will upload it to this engine, which is what you see here. Upload it by clicking on choose the input file. And this engine is basically a black box. So you input a few parameters, but basically it'll run your model. It'll tell you if you have errors in it, so you can actually validate it. You have a validate button here as well. And then it'll return to you when it's done. And typically it's done in a few seconds. Doesn't take long. And it runs, by the way, in your browser. So you need to have Chrome or a couple of Firefox, or I think Safari or Opera. There are a couple choices. It's not going to run in every single browser. It doesn't run in Internet Explorer, for example. But when it completes its processing, it returns to you another Excel file, a different Excel file, not with your data inputs, but with the outputs. So throughput by individual resource, efficiency, utilization, time working, time blocked, time waiting for every single individual resource that you defined in your model. And then, of course, the process is you make improvements, you change things around, you add buffers, you maybe have to add resources, and then you run it again. And guaranteed, when you go through this process, which could be several days if it's a substantial design, with a team, but when you do that, you inevitably will end up with a better design. No doubt about it, by testing your model in this way. So this is a step that we highly recommend that takes place after you've created a conceptual design. And what you want to be able to do is test this and make improvements to it and finalize your buffer sizes or in-process Kanbans, and develop your sequencing rules as well. You can test sequencing rules by creating multiple scenarios and running experiments. So this is pretty exciting, pretty cool stuff, and it's included in the platform. Final thing is we have, for those clients that want to do, and they don't want to just learn about this, they want to do it, and they want some help. We have two programs. One's called the Stream program. The other is called the Link program. So Stream is line design or workflow design. Link is material flow. And so this is a coaching and training hybrid. So you would form a team. The team would take the online courses, but also launch an implementation program for both of these two topics. They could be running in parallel. And our role, Leonardo Group, would be to coach you along the way. So you'd be meeting weekly or more often. You'd be following a roadmap or a schedule that we would provide as part of the program. And at the end of 12 to 16 weeks, you'd have an implemented design. So this is kind of the highest end involvement with the studio. Not just learning, but actually applying it with our help and coaching you along the way. Because every the courses are standard, but every application has its own challenges and is different in some ways. So I think it's extremely helpful to have a team and to have some outside input in terms of the decisions that are being made. And at the end, you get the reward, right? Which is not just a trained team, and they will be trained deeply by going through this process, but you'll have the actual, improved process or new line. Right, so I think that's it. I'll stop right there. Those of you that have signed up for this webinar, this event with Toyota, will be getting some additional information about this. So going forward, so there'll be time to, learn more as we go forward. All right, so I'm going to go back. See if I can figure out how to do that. I'm going to.
But in the meantime, we're going
Here we
to
go.
be passing the torch. We're gonna again travel to Columbus, Indiana. We're gonna be passing the torch over to Tom. So, Richard, would you be so kind to go ahead and publish the link for everybody to click on?
Yep, I sent the link out, but I'll post it here again.
Just in case. And, we will hang out. I will stay here in Webinar Jam for a couple of minutes to make sure that that folks are transitioning over to Teams and to Tom and Tricia that are going to take the torch from here.
Okay, so the link is posted in the chat box. I'll just stay here because apparently I need to repost it occasionally. It kind of disappears from view.
Okay.
So I'll do that. But you should be able to click on this link and log in, get connected to Microsoft Teams on the other side.
All right. On the other side, Tricia should be accepting and bringing you into the Teams room. So we'll get that started. I will be leaving you here, but I'll see you on the other side. Thanks.
Hey, Tom, see you in a minute. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Richard, we're going to give everybody a couple of minutes, and we should see the numbers beginning to fall. Yeah, they're falling little by little. Folks, remember, please, when you transition over to the team side, cameras off, mics off. We want to give Tom, center stage and as much bandwidth as possible. Cameras off and mics off, please.
Yeah, cameras and mics off.
Yes.
There's some questions here in our chat, our Webinar Jam chat. What I plan to do is answer those questions in an email. So we're compiling, the questions, and we'll answer them and then send out an email to our list with answers for them. Webinar Jam is recording these, so we have access to all the questions that you posted later.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yep, numbers keep falling. So we'll give this a minute.
Okay, resend the link. Yes, I will resend the link. There we go.
So Michael, hopefully you can click on it now and transition over. Please remember to close Webinar Jam when you're done again, just to make sure that there are no conflicts with your computer with different resources, right?
Yeah. Yanni,
No.
your question is, did you record these sessions? The answer is we recorded the chat, your questions, but we were asked by Toyota not to record them.
Yeah. What Richard meant by recording was the chat. We did not record this. This will not be. Normally, when we do a training session using Webinar Jam, we record it and post it later. That is not the case here. Toyota asked very clearly to not do that. Membership to Lean Design Studio, leandesignstudio.com. Go in and become a member. And there are different levels.
In any case, we'll be getting back to you.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Everybody will get an email with information. Right? Yeah, leandesignstudio.com. Go in and you will see all the options to become a member. Oh, numbers are coming down. What do you say, Richard? When do we go offline? When it hits 20? Just to pick up a number.
Okay.
Just to pick a number.
Yeah.
We're still at 32.
Yeah, I sent an email to everyone who registered for this course with this link. So everyone has a backup if you didn't get that. 1-3-10 rule in email as well.
Oh, 1-3-10. Our rule of thumb when we're teaching material replenishment, material flow, 1 day of inventory to start, 1 day of inventory at the line, 3 days in the supermarket, 10 days in the warehouse. And normally the main driver, line to supermarket, Kanban, supermarket to warehouse, Kanban, primary driver, and then warehouse out to the suppliers, ERP driven. That's what we mean by that rule. That, of course, is all explained in much more detail. But that's how we start, then set a target of 2 to 4 hours of inventory at the line, and in the future to have suppliers deliver directly to the supermarket and not to the warehouse. In that way, you reduce your inventories and increase your inventory turns. So again, very quick explanation on that one, Colleen. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Down to 30. Well, we're getting close. So probably based on the time, 10:32. Mountain time. Tom is probably already talking. Let's give it 1 more minute, Richard, because it looks like we still have some folks online. Please remember to turn off your cameras, your mics, and to turn off Webinar Jam when you transition over to Tom. In the meantime, we'll have a mate. If anybody from Brazil is still online, this is a Brazilian souvenir.
Yeah,
I got this in Montenegro near Porto Alegre.
Yeah, I've got a Brazilian souvenir on the shelf over there that you gave me, I think.
Didn't I bring you a hat from Brazil?
The hat.
Yeah. I brought you a hat from Brazil.
Yeah.
A gardening hat.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you say, Richard?
Okay.
Shall we say goodbye?
We'll just end the call, right?
Yep. Folks, we will see you on the other side. We're going to go ahead and be offline here. Please remember to turn Webinar Jam off when you transition over to Team. Cams off, mics off, please. See you on the other side.
All right, here we go. Bye.